Hi, everybody. This is Jamie Machik with the Wisconsin Valley Library Service, and thank you for joining our presentation today. This is our first webinar program of 2018. We're excited to have you here. And Sam Helmick is with the Burlington Public Library in Burlington, Iowa, and she's going to talk about marketing library programs for increased impact. And Sam gave this presentation at the ARSO conference back in September and did a fabulous job. And she was gracious enough to share this information with all of us today. So Sam, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Jamie. Appreciate it so much. Typically, this is when I ask by show of hands how many of you are here today. So by show of hands, how many of you are here today? And I'll just take it by faith that we've all had our coffee and we're ready to rock and roll. Appreciate the nice introduction. I'm going to give us a brief overview so that we know where we're headed this afternoon. And then I look forward to taking any questions or comments or ideas at the conclusion of our conversation today. I think that'll be great. First, we're going to talk about bingo. So when you take this back to your libraries, because I'm certain several of you are fact finders. You're like, the Star Trek ship Enterprise. You're on a fact-finding mission today to go back and report to your home bases from the Enterprise here. I've created a handout for you to play along with your social marketing team or your stakeholders or your management team, talking about the nomenclature or the special language that we use as marketers, because of course we already know our own language as librarians, holds, OPAC, things of that nature, but talking about memes and reciprocity and unpacking the hashtag may be important for you when you go back home. So if you can make it the game, why not? But most importantly, I'm going to be talking to you about the almighty checklist. Our social marketing process here at the library, and several places that I've seen around the country that are doing it successfully, or even places where I've consulted, use what they call the almighty checklist. And it's essentially a checklist that talks about the process of planning a library campaign, whether it's for a collection or a program or a change in policy. And it establishes guideposts from start to finish for anybody who's going to be tasked with marketing this campaign. Sometimes it includes a budget, definitely always includes an audience, the PR language, the tone, the reading level at which we're going to be marketing this campaign, as well as a list of just traditional and modern marketing with so many options with Snapchat and YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. Sometimes we forget about our traditional marketing like the Bonnie Buyer or the mosque or school or church newsletter or even our newspaper and radio. So making sure it's on that almighty checklist can be useful. The checklist, in my experience, used to start out on hard copy paper. Not only are we trying to eliminate our footprint, but also to allow it to be a living, breathing, changeable document. We have now thrown this up where folks can collaborate in my library digitally, so it can be changed right now while I'm sitting here with you. Another person on my team can add and I'll check off to the list. If I'm at a conference, it's where I can add notes and ideas as well, and folks can respond to them on my marketing team in the same time. It's a tool used by all of the staff because, as we know, marketing starts internal. It's great to have excellent posters, wonderful hashtags and slogans, and a precise message, but the folks at our front desk or our friends of the library who are with us at book sales don't know what's happening, then it's very difficult for that magical word of mouth marketing to occur. So we make sure that our almighty checklist is something that is accessible to all members of staff. And then it incorporates your natural promoters too, because let's say you are a library team of one. Right now, you're the only one standing on the precipice and you're the only one scheduling those Facebook posts. There are folks in your community who come to your library, are prolific users, and also have social media accounts. And these are folks that we can be reaching out to and adding as human capital and talent to our marketing team, because they love the library as much as we do. And they're somebody's uncle or somebody's niece or they're somebody's teacher. And so the meaningful message of the library would be even greater in value because they're the ones sharing it. So I've talked about this checklist quite a lot. What's it look like? Well, for us, it looks like this. It starts with the title, which seems obvious, the date, and the location, because sometimes we leave our brick and mortar institutions, sometimes we're outreach at schools, sometimes we're at a farmer's market. So making sure everybody knows where the event or the campaign is happening or where we're taking this special collection of books is important. Purpose is definitely important too and should definitely always tie into library brand. If the library's brand is to connect, learn, and imagine, then the purpose of this event or promotion should have one of those three factors. If the library is trying to prepare 21st century learners and 21st century job skills, then maybe that should really be part and parcel to the purpose of this campaign. Where can folks go for more information? Because let's face it, marketing half the time is just herding the cats in the direction we want them to go. Please visit us. Please visit our website. Please go to this section of our collection. So where do folks go for more information? We used to, I think, especially with traditional media, see a lot of librarians who were almost paid by the word. We wanted to put every bit of information that we possibly could about a campaign into our marketing and our promotion. However, as social media continues to grow, even if we are allowed 280 characters, our brains can only take so much, and the stimuli is so competitive with millions of people talking on one or two popular social media channels at once that we want it to be pithy. Marketing should really be a teaser. It should entice people. It should encourage them into action, and that is to find out more information by coming and seeing us here. So then who are my promoters? Well, my promoter might be a very prolific storytime mom on social media. One of my promoters might be the youth services staff member who's responsible for scheduling the posts depending on the campaign that we are promoting. So those are answers that we try to find out right at the beginning. And then we essentially have a timeline. 6 to 8 weeks prior, of course this depends on how large the event is, we start checking off the nuts and bolts, the kitchen items of everyday programming, whether it's reserving rooms, adding it to our events calendar in the email, building a thumbnail or developing a graphic for it, requesting funds if need be. So I also start throwing links immediately in here because if I can make my checklist as easy for my staff as possible, then that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give them as much information as they can use, and so they don't have to go jumping onto other places on the web to find it. So if I'm asking them to put it on a community calendar, then there's a link to that calendar. 6 weeks prior, we're creating a Google registration because that's how we reserve our forms, and this is about the time we're deciding what exactly is our Facebook event going to say. If you post a Facebook event for a major event, so not like a big annual thing, but like a story time or a new book club or a teen tech week, if you're posting it much further out than 4 to 6 weeks, it gets lost. You'll have a lot of folks come to your library later on and say, oh, I thought that already happened. They're competing with the events in their community already, so it's kind of difficult to have something sitting in the hopper for 5 or 6 weeks and folks not to feel really excited about it, say they're interested or going, and then completely forget about it. And then if it doesn't require registration, just making sure that I'm letting the rest of the staff know that. This is also the place where I'm writing out my press release, any of those last minute changes, any single time that a speaker's had to cancel or, you know, something's gone awry, this is where I now have a chance to edit what I've already been writing before I send it out. And then I also put the names of the folks on my staff so that if I win the lotto or I, you know, fall into a canyon, folks know exactly where they're going to need to go to for information if I don't show up to work that day. So, you know what's really cool about checklists too? There's like a dopamine high that you get every single time you check one of those boxes. I think the first thing I'm going to do in the future is make the first box be create a checklist, so I can just check it off and be like, done. A month out, we're putting up our signage. We're sending these out in the mailers to other libraries in case we want them to put up posters for us, our local bookstore, our cafes, any of our stakeholders. I have them down by name. I have them down by email address so that folks know exactly where to go. If we're going to use Friends of the Library funds to boost a Facebook signal or to pay for a Hawkeye Happenings ad, at least in our little neck of the woods, this is where that would happen 1 month prior out. And then I also have a list of where I'm going to send my press releases as the reporters change, interviewers change, new staff is added. We see, you know, sometimes radio stations will join conglomerates. This is where I can keep track of that and make sure that if I've lost my contact for the features editor because Craig retired, I know I need to figure out who that is next and reach out and build those relationships. And then I also just have a list of it because why not be lazy? If this is a living document on Google Drive or Evernote or Dropbox, I can just copy and paste as that changes on. And so can the folks in my library system who are helping me as a marketing team without having to create, lists on their email. And then also where I would send my traditional media to. So this is also a space where I would start adding a thumbnail. So my drawing skills are not that great. I can do stick people. I'm fairly proud of my stick people. In fact, some of the times they even have 10 fingers and toes, but that's about as handy as it gets for me. So I will sketch up a drawing in Word document or Paint. I'll put the language that I would like in there, and then I send it on to somebody else that has that talent in my community at work here, in my work culture. And so this is where it will go. So they know what I'm visualizing, but then they can scrub it up and make it much prettier. So this is what it used to look like on hard copy. And fortunately, people don't have to read my icky handwriting anymore. When things change, though, this is where you could add notes and change players. And as you can see on the photo on the right-hand side, it lives on my wall. These documents used to live on my wall, so it would just be a reminder behind my back while I was working of things that I needed to still accomplish and also those easy wins of what had already happened. But now we've experimented with Dropbox, Evernote, Google Docs, Slack, and oh, we definitely love Canva because these are all free. It's a marketing budget of $0 in this institution where I'm currently employed, which is fine because it helps us to be creative. And when we do have a couple of friends donations, definitely get you where you're going for the most impact with your dollar. So how do we start? We start with our checklist and then we curate. We collect a whole bunch of information, whether it's from programs past with photographs, awesome library memes through Pinterest boards, fake library stats that we can borrow from that hilarious Facebook and Twitter account, and we start to collect them so that we have dynamic media, visual graphics that will capture our audience. And so it's important because, number one, we're librarians and curation is kind of what we do for a living, but also it's important because dynamic media is how you're going to stop folks from scrolling their thumb past your social media properties as they look on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat. Sharing images on Twitter increases retweets by 150%. Facebook posts, which include some sort of visual graphic, whether it's an article, data, or a graph, experience 89% more likes. So we want to engage, and the way that we do that is by curating and collecting an excellent library collection of media that we can use later on for our campaigns. There are third-party applications that can help you do that. I actually started with a folder in my office and would just cut out clips from American libraries or a really cool menu I saw somewhere that I thought could be transposed and adapted to our purposes here, and just kept them as a folder of inspiration until one of my colleagues invited me onto Pinterest, and this whole new world was opened up to my eyes. So then this is what one of those third-party publishing apps looks like. This is Publisher, and it permits me to post and schedule posts on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook on my personal accounts and multiple professional accounts. And what I really liked about Publisher is that it permits me to edit those. So if I find out that I spelled Veterans Day incorrectly, or that, oh, lo and behold, the library will be open after all, I really need to go in there and fix that, I can go in there and edit that after it's been scheduled, which is quite lovely. And Publisher was doing this before Facebook would let you go back and edit posts, but thankfully you can do that there too. What's great about tracking these third-party applications is that they're a smaller company than the bigger players like Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. So they're going to be able to adapt and to create at a much faster pace that will either prove to be popular or be, just forgotten about. And if they're popular, what you'll notice is that the bigger players will eventually adopt them. For example, Snapchat was offered $1 billion 2 years ago by Facebook to be purchased. Snapchat realized that it was a smaller company, could move and innovate faster, and decided to just stay in the game. So Facebook is now, because they can't buy the tech of face filters, adding that as a component to Facebook within their own social media platform. As you've probably noticed in the last about 18 months, you can add these really fun filters to your face or your photos through Facebook, and that is a direct influence from not being able to buy that technology from a smaller company who are designing it and implementing it and innovating it. So play with your third-party apps because you'll learn what's coming on the horizon from them. So beyond having native and organic marketers in your community, realize that there are fun people on staff that probably have some social influence in your library community and your service area, and let them have some fun. I have a colleague who has thousands of Twitter and Facebook followers and really enjoys social marketing a lot. And about 3.5 years ago, when which doesn't even seem possible, when we had the emojis come out and be beta tested for Facebook, they were one of the folks who were allowed to play around with it and have it on their Facebook account before anybody else. It was quite a game changer when it came out. We had many members of the public call us and say, hey, what's going on? My thumbs up just became like 5 different faces and they're dancing around and I don't know what to do. Because digital navigation is a form of literacy, and the digital divide has been something we need to champion, whether it's on a database or a learning platform or even social media. So we had fun with it. I invited this member of staff to create a bookmark with emojis, which allowed folks to review their books, but it also unpacked this concept of these are gifts. These are going to be on the platform of Facebook now for as long as, you know, as they deem them useful, and these are what these images represent. This is a form of literacy. Let us help you navigate your social media so that you can use them at your will. And the bookmark unpacked that, but it also brought in the library and readership into the mix, and it was a lot of fun. It boosted the library signal. It was a social media phenomena that was happening across the globe, and we were able to piggyback on that a little bit to hold conversations that would be difficult to unpack at a regular checkout desk transaction. So it's fun to have fun with social marketing because you have these digital possibilities, but then you can also flip the script, come back to like a paper and pencil book display, bring it back to traditional media and have some fun. So it's about the content. It's finding the correct content. So there is a rule in marketing, and it applies to libraries too. It's called the 20/80 rule. 20% of the time we are permitted to market to our audience. The other 80% of the time we're somewhat obliged to engage them and entertain them. If we flip that script, if we go 25%, 35%, and just add a little bit more of advertisement, then people begin to feel spammed and they stop listening to our channel. Libraries have so much excellent content within their walls that this should never be a problem for us. We should be able to easily come up with a lot of fun content to engage our users. There's still going to be a little bit of an advertisement there in the form of a call to action. So let me give you some examples to this. A couple of, let's see, last fall we actually asked folks to rate their favorite Mr. Darcy. I will warn you, I'll give you a caveat that that is a much more serious question than I gave precedence to. We had some interesting conversations that got a little heated on social media about who the best Mr. Darcy is. It was a lot of fun and it engaged folks. Was there a call to action? Of course there was. The call to action was, we have materials that have several versions of Mr. Darcy, whether it be a pastiche that's been written, the original work by Jane Austen, or even DVDs that are available to check out at your library. It also was a call to action to have our audience on social media realize that we are fun and we're trying to engage them, and it's okay to be a little silly. Occasionally, too, the call of action is nothing much more than we are here, we are here, we are here. So it's good to remind our library that, like our library users, that we are here, even if it's just asking them to enjoy this sunny, shiny day that we're having here in our service community. And it reminds them, oh yeah, that's right, it's been a while since I've grabbed a couple of books, or it's been a while since I've gone to a program, or it's been a while since I even thought about our brick and mortar institutions, and how can I be using that resource to my best of my potential. Sometimes it's in the form of adding articles. Sometimes it's in the form of just taking photographs of what's going around the library. Behind the scenes are really big in any business, including libraries, showing how the sausage is made, from the day-to-day work at a library is always fascinating to folks. But there's an element of mystery to us, no matter what the library is, academic, school, public, or private. So showing them how the life of a book gets to the shelf, or ooh, all the fresh books that came in today, hot off the presses, and they're about to be ready for you to check out, are always great. Or even, folks who aren't going to come into the library in the next couple of weeks, now they can see what our book displays were, including this one down here on the lower right-hand corner, which literally features a book from every single reference in Billy Joel's We Didn't Start the Fire, which was awesome to attempt, and it was a really big book display, and most of the people just commented about how we'd put Billy Joel in their head and they couldn't get it out now. It was hilarious. Reciprocity is also a major part of this. You guys are not a social media team of one. I'm here, and the rest of you are here. So even if you are starting today as one, you have the rest of us now for the ask. You can reach out to Burlington Public Library in a direct message and let them know something really cool is coming, and maybe you'd like some likes. You can go to the coffee shops in your community, or the real estate dealers, or the schools, and say, hey, we really would like to share your content. Is there any way that we can boost each other's signal? It's okay to do that as long as there's some reciprocity. Share and share alike. A great example of this was we've had an internship program. A couple years ago, we won the Dollar General grant to fund an intern during our summer, and it was so popular that our Friends of the Library group decided that they wanted to have one year-round. So we have a quarterly one, and I could tell kids, oh, here's some money, and this is a great place to work, and I could throw up the promos. But having that voice of a former intern in their own peer and age group say, hey, this was an amazing experience when I did it, highly recommend, that's when we seriously saw nibbles, not only on social media, but folks filling out the application online. So using those native marketing voices. We also do it now through collaboration. I'm in a small Iowa town, and so I'm actually known as as the Twitter guru of Burlington. There are two things you have to do to be the Twitter guru of Burlington at this time, because social media is still fairly new in the Midwest. The first one is you have to live in Burlington, and the second one is you have to have a Twitter account. So I got it by default. And so that reputation as a librarian gets around. We help people with tech, we help people with applications online and finding jobs. So I had our Community Lions group ask if I could help them develop a Snapchat filter. I'd never done it before, but I thought, you can only mess this up so bad once. And so we played around with filters and showed them how to accomplish that. And because it is uncharted territory, they aren't really charging a lot in the Midwest. I was able to put an Oktoberfest filter for Snapchat on an entire baseball diamond for 2 days for about $27. So this is something that our library has experienced a lot of fun with. We create a Snapchat filter for some of our major events like our Comic-Con and our summer reading program, and folks know that they can come in at this geographical location and take a selfie, and it will have a filter which makes the day and the event and the space that they were in more meaningful. What's really cool too is that it's giving them something to do when they get here. It's social marketing that's giving them not only something to do, but a reason to share. I'm going to come to this space so that I get this specific filter. While I'm at this space, I'm going to sign up for summer reading. Because I wanted this specific filter and I used my face when I took the selfie, now I'm more apt to share it. And if I'm more apt to share it, then now the library signal has been boosted on social media and Instagram in this community. And if my folks see my face on there, of course, they're going to comment and share it. If my grandma from Virginia, even though I'm in Iowa, sees it, she's going to share it. And suddenly the library is being talked about in circles that never would have even contemplated what we were trying to accomplish for the community here. So it's sneaky because not only do I have the reputation now of being able to help our library with tech stuff, but it's also internal marketing with groups. Now the Lions all follow us on Facebook. Now the Lions are all interested in funding our summer reading program because we've connected those dots through collaboration. and instruction. So there's marketing on social media, there's marketing through traditional means, there's marketing internally with your staff, and then there's also marketing through instruction, and sharing the library's narrative every time you unpack a database or a learning process. So how do we find the perfect note? Because there's a lot of moving parts to this, and I don't know how many of you went into librarianship to become a marketer, but I didn't. In fact, I didn't go into librarianship willingly at all. I currently work at a library I voted against. So if you all haven't turned off your computers right now and have left me, I can explain that for just a brief moment. When I was a teenager, we had an old library and it had one shelf of books. And once I'd finished reading those, there wasn't much for me to do. And so by the time they wanted to build a new one, I didn't see the purpose of a library because I'd never really thought it was for me. However, they built it, and to meet a graduate requisite of volunteering, I shamelessly applied at this shiny new library building that had not only a teen shelf, but a teen space, and excellent programs and Wi-Fi hotspots, and you could check out DVDs, and if you were elderly, they would actually send books to your home by delivery service, and I fell in love. And so I knew that if other people could hear this story, if we could talk about the transformative power of librarians and library staff and just what library services accomplish for communities across this great nation, that you could see people like me that didn't vote for an institution now pretty much devote many of its daily hours to it, and because they're in love with it, because they finally were told the right story. And that's what marketing is. It's telling stories. And frankly, we're pretty great at that as librarians. So what do? We audit. We take a survey of the community and see what's working for our competition. Libraries our size are slightly larger. Also, libraries a little smaller to see what they're doing with less resources because we want to be as innovative as they are. We curate it. We collect this data. We collect images. We collect quotes from our customers. We collect quotes from our books and our authors. We collect wonderful graphics about the services we do, and then we develop and schedule. And then we do it again. So, curation should start with brand narrative. Brand narrative is like a tagline. Nike's just doing it. Or even, you know, McDonald's, do, I'm loving it. It should be no more than 3 concepts because once again, we're a 140 character social media world. We have the memory of a goldfish and I can't remember more than 4 concepts in 8 seconds. And then it should be present in all social marketing. So we see here the Fraser Valley Regional Library is read, learn, play. Those are very easy concepts to share in photos and in quotes. Mine's a little bit more difficult. We have connect, learn, and imagine. All are abstract terms. So I have to show in my photographs, in my data, in my programming descriptions, how we're learning together, how we're connecting together, and how we're imagining. What makes this really nice, though, when you tie your marketing in with your brand narrative or your library mission, is that you can actually recycle most of your content into your board packets and then also to your reports to the state and municipal stakeholders. So I created something called a social media audit. And what we do is we track platforms. So whether it's Instagram, Facebook, Tumblr, YouTube, whatever, times and days that folks are posting in our service community. And then we also look at like content and interactions. What are they posting about? Who are they commenting to? Who's commenting back to them? Are book quotes getting the most likes? Are pictures of folks that are actually checking out library books, are those getting the most shares and retweets? And then what are their calls to action? Are there calls to action to physically visit the library? Are there calls to action to use the databases and the digital platforms online so that they can check out library resources right there while they're already online in their pajamas, if that's what they're doing? We do this because, frankly, we're researchers and we need to fill out our community to see what's working best. We borrow ideas for a living, and so why waste our valuable and precious time learning things that folks before us have already learned? Why don't we take what they have already accomplished in our communities and then tweak it to make it work best for us? So then we choose 3 libraries, which are essentially our case studies, and we write down what works for them and what doesn't work for them. Do they have a Twitter account but they haven't posted in it since 2015, so it looks like a ghost town? Do they prolifically post on Facebook and nowhere else? But that's okay because the community isn't really using Instagram right now. These are questions that you ask, and you just kind of ferret out the answers too. And then you model your behavior after what seems to have the most momentum behind it. So what we see are some folks in some larger library service communities like the Los Angeles Public Library seeing a definite need for Instagram. It is a property of Facebook. It is going to continue to grow in popularity, and so it makes sense that they have gone in that direction. However, they saw that they needed to have two spaces. They needed a teen Instagram and then a public library Instagram for the institution at large. Both of them have very similar brands. We have the open book icon in the upper left-hand corner, but then one is exclusively telling teen stories with its photographs. Teen books, teen faces, teen activities. The LA Public Library, which is operated by the same system, shows a more diverse arrayment of programs, resources, and faces within the library system. This can be showcased differently too, whether you're using social media platforms like Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, or if you're blogging. So the University of Iowa realized that stories were fairly popular on social media in Iowa. We're very Paul Harvey around here, and now for the rest of the story. So they've used social media to tell going to feature a specific branch in the London Library System every single week, and so that would tell stories of the branches rather than the collection. But it's storytelling at the end of the day, and it was through a audit of their properties and what their community was already doing on these platforms that helped them to arrive to these decisions. Seattle is the exact same way. They've created information that's been useful about programs, and now they're turning them into events so that it has a separate boost on social media. They're not just posting a flyer about the event, they're creating an event within Facebook so folks can boost their signal not only once by saying they are interested, but then again when they say they were going. Bettendorf Public Library, which is closer to you, frankly, in Iowa than it is me. It's up there north. They were creating wonderful newsletters that were very popular. And I said, well, why don't you just scan them and show them in your social media feeds so that you could duplicate the reach of your efforts, and that's worked very well for them. Polls are a lot of fun, and so are contests. The 7-word book reviews have been a lot of fun. You always want to make sure that you follow up on the answers. So even though I didn't want to say who our community's favorite Mr. Darcy was, because quite frankly I did not agree with my favorite Mr. Darcy, I did make sure to follow up and post that and act as a good sport. So let's talk about some trends. In 2018 and in 2019, we're going to see some specific trends that will help you as marketers, because the human eye in our communities across the nation have already been trained to accept them as good marketing. Monochromatic, so a very dramatic color, mostly black and white or black and yellow, just a 2-color imagery or content. Vivid imagery as well. We're going to go back to photographs and digitally created landscapes as opposed to very minuscule and minimalistic hand drawings that we've been seeing on a lot of, let's face it, cereal boxes, album covers, and movie posters. We're going to see brand specific fonts. So if you're going to do a Doctor Who night at your library, try to download that free Doctor Who font, because even if you don't have a photo of the TARDIS, if you have the Doctor Who font, your teens know exactly where you're coming from and where you're going. Bold typography is going to be big as well. So if it isn't brand specific, it's very bold font. Here are a couple of examples of fonts that are going to be very popular in the next several months, but then authentic photos as well. And in this realm of fake news and trying to understand how we can manipulate video and image, authentic photos that are happening in the moment at the checkout desk, on the bookmobile, are very, very valuable, and they really reach your audience in a way that encourages them to share. And then blurring the lines between virtual reality and our physical collections will continue to be an area of interest. So Realize that you can play around with your content with social messaging. Make sure that you have a return message, even if you aren't answering Facebook comments or direct messages at 3 o'clock in the morning. Making sure that you have it set to specifically say the library opens at such and such, and for future information you can visit our website at www is useful. Millennials really we respond very well to brands that answer us, even if it's an answer that is automated. Combating fake news doesn't have to be political. It's just the commitment that the library is going to source every single image they use, and they're only going to use Creative Commons or copyright-free information. Being the citation you want to see in the world may just be the commitment you make that helps your brand stand out as a marketer. So a couple of 2018 trends to look at. I like to look at what the big players are doing. So ad giants like Barbican Group and Proximity are really helpful. But then a lot of us spend some time on Goodreads. So looking at book covers for 2018, 2019 and seeing what the stylists are going to be is very helpful. And then you can even do a basic Google search of 2018 movie posters, and you can see, just like I observed earlier, we've got a lot of monochromatic colors going on here, very iconic font. We've got the Jurassic Park font, we've got the Marvel font in the lower left-hand corner with Wasp 2, and then very, very vivid images, no minimalistic issues here going at all. And then you have fun with filters and virtual reality. So looking at the brand, knowing that the brand for McDonald's are the golden arches, but then also seeing the Wi-Fi fries coming up and rising up like a sunrise, a delicious, greasy, salty sunrise. And playing with virtual reality and layers will be increasingly important. So fun with fonts. I've given you a couple of links to play around with your fonts so that you can have some really honestly fun with it. And making things go bolder. And then realizing that calming with cute is also going to be another trend. If you have to give information that you aren't really happy to have to give, like closing hours, or we're going to have to add a fee for not picking up your holds, try to do it in a respectful and tone way, like you're not tone deaf, but also in a cute way. So a couple of examples. IKEA here on the left. Love is complicated. IKEA is simple. Love is complicated, but IKEA is simple. Think about your book lists and how you're promoting your library collection. We're seeing a lot of personal growth and self-care and mindfulness ads coming out. So 20 personal growth books to read in 2018. That's going to be right in the heart of where your audience wants to listen. We've seen folks who are looking for cashiers turn cashiers into life-size bunnies. We've seen Cadbury turn its bunny into a very adorable little alien trying to grab the chocolate bar. So we're seeing a lot of animals. We're seeing a lot of cute cartoon characters. This is coming back large. When you do have to share a narrative that is a little bit disarming, it's good to do it in a fun and harmless way if you can at all poke fun with cute. So for example, the upper left-hand corner is the National Association of Diabetes, which is not at all funny. And so they try to soften the blow with a gingerbread cookie. We see the heavy competition of ads, marketing firms battling it out, and they turn themselves into kittens, which is a little easier to watch battling it out because when are kittens not adorable? We see Fiat taking a little innocent lamb and talking about how nature is the cut of the fittest and your Fiat should be as well. And it's still disturbing to me, to be honest with you, despite the large eyes, but I see what they're trying to accomplish here. And so I wanted to give you some examples of how that can be accomplished. And then lastly, there is a trend for gender neutral, to respect that gender doesn't necessarily need to be represented as a binary. So a couple of examples we have are the libraries rock. We have, of course, a binary representation here on the right-hand side, but then we also have a gender neutral representation with the book rocker with the book guitar here on the left. And then here are a couple of other examples we're starting to see on blogs of avatars being represented in a gender neutral and respectful way. So these are a couple of trends to consider as you move forward as marketers. And I really look forward to taking some questions. Thank you so much for spending this time in this space with me today. It's been very humbling.
Thank you so much, Sam, for all of that information. As Sam mentioned, we have some time that we can take questions or just comments. have a conversation, whatever you'd like. So feel free to post that in the question box, and we can go ahead and take that. One of the questions that came in already is from Catherine, and she asks, have you used nextdoor.com? We've had some success marketing and interacting with patrons on that site. It's kind of like Facebook. You sign up with your name and address. You can post announcements, events, things for sale, etc.
That's a great question, Catherine. We have played around with it. I've seen much more success with it in larger communities in Iowa, like Iowa City, Davenport, Ames. We have like community groups in Facebook where we're seeing a little bit more of interaction. However, we're keeping our hand on the pulse of it because eventually it will grow in popularity here and we don't want to be behind it. So even if it isn't something that you're seeing a lot of traffic on, I think that Catherine has a really good observation here that you should probably be aware of it because it's gaining traction.
Okay, excellent. Terry also mentioned that they use Trello for a checklist. Is that something you've used also, Sam?
Oh, I love it too because I'm a Mac girl. I definitely, I told you I vote against libraries and now I've thrown down the gauntlet on Mac or PC. But what's really great about it is that it works on multiple platforms. So if we have an Android person, a Mac person, and then like a Windows tablet person, we all can play on Trello and play well together. Yeah, so I like making checklists on there even just for library tasks, not even related to marketing. Terry's on it, yeah.
Great. Another question. So what do you find to be the top 3 social media platforms to use if you were to market your library? And I know that depends on possibly what your community might be using or what your, the amount of staff you have. But in your opinion, what if you're going to be on 3 sites, what would you, or 3 platforms, what would you recommend and why?
Great question, Jamie. We're going to take it as a hierarchy too. Facebook is still the Walmart of social media. Everybody lives there. Great grandma, and then also like our
It's true.
Why do they have an account? They're 8. So you definitely want to be there. You're always going to get your return on investment. The second one would actually be Instagram because it's visual. And if one picture says 1,000 words, you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck. But also because about 4 years ago, that's where all the kids were. So now that's where all the parents are. That's where all the Etsy creators are. You want to be on Instagram. It's just Facebook Lite. Because of the political climate and because like 83% of our world leaders now have a verified Twitter account, Twitter has grown by leaps and bounds in the last like months. So that is where you want to be. Twitter was the founder of the hashtag. I would argue that we were because librarians came up with search terms before it was cool. We just called them search terms and not hashtag. So brush your shoulders off, everyone. Good job. So Twitter would be the third. But because I'm a social marketer person, I'm not saying the library has to have a Snapchat platform, but they definitely need to know how it works because that's where all of the tweens are hiding from their parents. That and Whisper. So check out Snapchat and make sure you know what it's about because whatever Snapchat does is going to influence the other 3 anyway, and you want to be prepared.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does your library have can a library, okay, this is a dumb question and clearly I need to learn more about this. Can your library have a Snapchat account?
Great question. No, we do not. I have a Snapchat account and then I use the filters and then I take photos with those filters and then I post them on my other 3 platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, because it does 2 things. The first one being it shows them that we know about the platform, so we're speaking their language, and then it also once again gives me that element to research. It's kind of like Pokemon Go. I made sure that folks portals were in the nonfiction section and took photos and shared them on Facebook, but everything I just said in that sentence, I'm only 82% certain that those are actually real words.
Sure.
Because they're not properties that I personally have skin in, but I know that my service community does, so I want to make sure that it's represented there.
Great, thank you. And Katie says our library now in Algoma has a Snapchat account. We use it to promote our teen programs, and that's exactly what you said, that's where they're hiding from their parents and everything else. I think, at least from my like nieces and nephews, I hear now like Facebook was kind of a big deal, but then since like now their grandparents started using Facebook, they kind of like now they check it like once a week, and now they're all on Snapchat. So they're on it, but they've abandoned Facebook in a little bit of a way.
You always follow the money. So like we've seen a lot of tweens on Whisper too, but that's like the wild west of social media right now. None of us quite know what to do with it, but you still have money in firms and like Nike and Oreo are all on Snapchat. So clearly, if they see a reason to dump money into it, we should check it out.
Right, exactly. Another question, if you were the only one doing marketing and you have a smaller staff of 3 people, what would be the best marketing for a library to do a lot of reaching a lot of people?
I'm going to say it's going to be your events, because if you can create an event for your monthly or weekly story time, then you're giving other people the option to not only add on to it, but also to boost that signal. Because that's what I have my moms do or my dads do. I say, hey, could you please not only say you're interested, but then like a week later go back and say you're going, because then I've got it twice. Your followers saw it when you said you were interested, and 2 or 3 weeks later your followers saw it when you were going, so you boosted my signal almost like a time release capsule.
Great, that's awesome. Patty says, my nieces and nephews use Snapchat, but the high school puts a filter that doesn't allow to be used during the school day because it clogs the internet system. Yeah, I could see that happening too. Do you encourage libraries to use a tool? I think this has been talked about a lot, not just since social media came to the forefront, but well, no, I think social media is what drove this. What are your thoughts and opinions on using a tool, even if you're not seeing a lot of ROI with it? But let's say every other library around you is using it. So what do you do? Like,
Yeah. So if you think about it, we're not searching Google anymore when we're looking for restaurants. We're searching Facebook. It is now becoming looking for the search engine of the world. So if I'm a ghost town on those platforms, that doesn't represent us very well. Social media is one of our lawns. It's like a front lawn to our building. So if I have it Twitter and I've only posted to it once a year, it doesn't reflect well. If I can just throw out a tweet once a week, I think that at least shows that I'm present. I'm there. Because the last thing you want to do is have somebody try to approach you through their platform where they're comfortable, and the library in even a subliminal way say, no, we're not here for you.
So do you think it's better in that case to not have it at all if you can't devote the time to it?
I would create an account so that I have the handle, so that I have the name, the property, but then I would not activate it.
Okay.
And if it's already been activated, I would commit to once a week I'm going to schedule tweets out and call it a day.
That's great. I had to laugh when you talked about being the Twitter. I'm sorry. Was it the Twitter guru of Burlington?
I have a saying. It's great.
And how do you think that changed the relationship between your Lions Club and the library, like building on that knowledge, building on that collaboration?
I think that they understood why kids were being handed tablets in schools, and I think they understood our role in it as a public library institution in helping them with those 21st century skills, because digital navigation is a completely different type of literacy, but it is in fact a type of literacy. So it gave them a deeper appreciation of what we're here to help them accomplish.
Right, and then they can tell everybody else, how you were able to help them as well, and that's the kind of marketing I don't think we always think about. We think of the things we're putting on social media. We think of the flyers we're hanging and the posters we're hanging, which is all good stuff. But I really like today that you talked about that collaboration, because that's how we can also market ourselves very effectively.
Well, and just to add to that, when the fake news conversation started to come up in our community, we hosted a panel, but we would already set up our reputation as people who deeply cared about your social media life. And so we had that to support having that conversation and being the platform for it.
That's great. That's great. All right. Well, I am not seeing any other questions come in. We had a lot of great ones. So, Sam, I want to thank you again for sharing your expertise with us, taking the time to talk with all of us. The audience members, thank you for your questions and your participation. As I mentioned, the slides and this recording of the presentation will be up on the Wisconsin Valley Library Service website. If you go to that site, wvls.org, and under professional development, continuing education, you will find a listing of those. We hope to see you at our next presentation as well. So once again, thank you attendees. Thank you, Sam, for the information. I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. So long.
You too. Bye.